For your listening information, this episode of the Nerdy Photographer Podcast features adult language and scenarios and situations. You've been warned, this episode is definitely not safe for work. Okay, but I still think we're using the wrong key to decrypt this.
I will break through.
Whatever you say. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Nerdy Photographer Podcast. I'm your host, Casey Fatchett. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, in addition to bringing you entertaining and informative photography-related content, I also go on adventures with the crew of the Starship Fibonacci. At the moment, Fib and I are in a secret research facility where there is supposedly a working trans-dimensional transporter. That would be really helpful for us since right now we're chasing Bang the Bonker through rifts in space and time that he's creating. Unfortunately, all the computers are password protected and we're having difficulty breaking through. Well, Fib is having trouble.
It's a combination cipher in a dead alien language with over 5,000 different glyphs. It's going to take some time.
Yeah, and while Fib is working on that, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so that you get future episodes like this one, where I have a humorous and, dare I say, irreverent conversation with Steven Van Elk from the Wedding Photo Hangover Podcast about coded language in the photography industry. Coded language. Funny how that worked out.
Yes, entirely a coincidence, I'm sure.
Check out that talk with Steven after the break. Hey, Fib, did you notice these glyphs are written on the back of the monitor? Hey, photographers. Have you noticed how the life goes out of your subject's eyes when you tell them how to pose? You say, stand there, put your arm like this. It gets even worse when you have subjects who are a bit shy or introverted. If you want to create authentic, emotional photos, my Let's Be Real Unposed photography prompts will help you create interactions that your clients will remember when they look back on their photos for years. I've developed my Unposed photography prompts over 20 years, taking pictures of people using my own self-conscious nature to help my clients who felt that they were unphotogenic. From couple sessions to weddings and family portraits, these prompts will help you get more dynamic and natural photos with your subjects. And right now, you can get 25% off if you use the code POD25P. That's POD, P-O-D, 25P, all uppercase. Just go to nerdyphotographer.com and find the prompts in our store. Stop posing and start prompting. Hello, and welcome to the Nerdy Photographer Podcast. I am your host, Casey Fatchett, and I am joined today by Steven Van Elk from the Wedding Photo Hangover Podcast. We should say the more attractive and funnier half of the Wedding Photo Hangover Podcast.
I mean, I would say that. I don't know that my co-host would say that, but I'm certainly saying it right now to you. I am the more attractive and funnier half of the podcast.
Lean into it, buddy. Lean into it. Like, that's fine. I totally go with it.
I'm the super handsome one, and I sound great, and everybody loves me.
I would say you have the better radio voice, honestly. We can. I'm sure I'll pay for that later if we come back for another episode. But today we're going to talk about, and this came up because of a tweet I actually saw you put out about something. We're going to talk today about code words in the photo industry and the code words that sort of like drive us nuts and like sort of like annoy us, whatever. And the one that you had mentioned was, and it's something that I have gone against for a long time, unphotogenic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It just gets used so many times. And like, I personally deal with a lot of clients who don't feel comfortable in front of the camera, who are camera shy. And I always use that's a term that I use because that determines that's more about their feelings about having their picture taken as opposed to a photographer saying like, you're just unphotogenic. And it just seems to be a code word for like, I don't find you attractive.
Yeah. Yeah. No, another one that I hate is similar to unphotogenic. They will say somebody has a challenging face or body type.
Challenging face?
Challenging? challenging. What's the challenge in getting a photograph of somebody whose face looks like whatever? It's like it's so coded towards this idea of, I have in my head an idea of like what I want to shoot, and it's this vision of beauty. And if somebody doesn't look like that vision of beauty, how can I shoot them in such a way that hides what I find their flaws to be?
Right.
And it's just like, it's gross to me. It's so gross.
It's so gross because, and like, if you spend any amount of time on Instagram or on TikTok, where you see these, and people at home who can't see me, I'm using the air quotes, influencers, and there'll be things like 5 poses for unphotogenic clients, and it's like they're hiding their face. Like it's just all these pictures, like they're like it was one of them was literally this person like showing like hiding the face in a book behind a hand,
oh my gosh,
turned around completely facing away from the camera, and I'm just like, what are you saying? Like, you're just saying like you're a nuggo, and I don't want to look at you, and nobody else is going to look at you, but we can still take a picture that will, but as long as your face ain't in it. And it's like, instead of teaching people like, hey, this is how you take pictures of people of different body types, different face types, whatever, that maybe don't fit the, I don't know, whatever Aristotelian ideal or whatever whatever of beauty or whatever that you have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's so gross. It just like, it turns me off. And powerful people in our industry use this term.
I have nothing against like trying to figure out a way to capture somebody who might have body issues, in a way that'll make them feel better about their body, and
exactly.
in a way that'll make them realize how beautiful they are and how wonderful they are as like a person. But yeah, like you were saying, like the ideas that were being thrown around in that, I think it's like Petapixel or F-Stoppers article, I forget which one, but it's all like,
it rhymes with metamixel.
Silhouette.
It rhymes with metamixel. Yeah, it was some sort of like, it was a like, yo, use silhouettes. I'm like, don't show them at all. And it's like, no, come on, for God's sake. Like, seriously, people like, this person doesn't fit my ideal, concept of beauty. I'm just not going to show them at all. Like, I'm just going to put them in silhouette, as long as they're not fat, then I can do a silhouette. Like, it's horrible. Like, I've dealt with clients. I don't know if you've ever dealt with this, but I've had some clients who had serious body dysmorphia issues.
Mm-hmm.
And like, knowing that and working with them and like, let's take photos that make you feel good about yourself. And let's yes, there are posing techniques that you can use that, and knowing what those principles are. And it's not necessarily like, I've got a posing guide, which posing guides are a whole other thing, where I kind of go like, no, because those don't work with every body type or face type or whatever, or just people don't feel comfortable. Like, I'm more of a prompting person. So that people feel comfortable, but then I have to know like what makes people look good depending on their body type. That's, hey, guess what? I'm a photographer. That's my job. It's not like, on them to look good. So yeah, it just makes me cringe. It makes my skin crawl, because I know like just that mentality and like how many people there are out there. And honestly, I'm probably one of them, because I don't like having my picture taken. Like, I get really seriously judgmental on myself. When I, having my picture taken or taking photos of myself, self-portraits, it's just sort of like, have some like kindness for that individual on the other side of the camera, like, and how they're feeling. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I get that, because like when COVID hit, I dropped like 15 pounds. And then recently, my wife and I were like re-upping. We're switching our life insurance policy. So we had to have somebody come out, take our blood, all that. One of the questions they ask is, have you lost 10 pounds or more in the last year? And by the time we got back around, like almost a year later, I was back up to what I weighed before. And it's just like, I'm not completely happy with the way like I feel and look right now. And a lot of it has to do with
your weight,
depression from the last year, and like
Dude.
maybe not making the best choices with food and alcohol because I'm depressed.
I know. I am
But it's
completely
like,
there.
I don't want somebody to be like, all right, now I'm going to have you turn this way because you're too fat, Steve, or something like that. Like,
Or you just like,
that would make me feel so bad.
yeah, and it would make me feel horrible because like, I mean, like I'm dealing with like all these like, same way. I lost like at the very beginning of COVID. I was like, I'm gonna work out all the time because I just didn't have nothing else to do, and I lost like 10 pounds, and then like then my parents died, and it was like the depression like seriously hit. I gained like 28 pounds just because I was just like, I just want to eat and sleep. That's all I want to do.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, like we never, like, regardless of that, I'm not trying to like focus on my own issues, but it's like, regardless of what anybody has going on in their life, we as photographers, it is our job to make our subjects look good. I've done a lot of paparazzi photos, like over time, like I done a lot of like things with celebrities, like just on a paparazzi sort of level, like where you're shooting events and like they were showing up or whatever. And there seems to be a thing like there, it's like try to get a picture of people looking bad, like because that's going to sell more or whatever. And I'm like, no, like I can't take a bad photo of somebody. I can't take a bad picture of someone. So it's like, yeah,
well,
on purpose.
Bad pictures.
I can take a bad, like I can't take a bad photo and sell it. I can't take a bad photo and sell it.
I can't. I won't deliver it.
I will not deliver a bad photo.
Bad photos.
Thank you. Thank you for putting me in my place because you're absolutely correct. I take bad photos. I just don't deliver them. And certainly for my clients, there are pictures that don't come out and they just like, you're never going to see that because I know that you're going to hate that picture. You are going to hate it. You're going to like look at that photo and it's going to make you feel bad about yourself or whoever you're like. And there's sometimes where like a guest will do something weird at a wedding and I'm just like, I'm taking a picture of that. Like, you know, like as long as no one's not exposing themselves, as long as no one looks awful, like, okay. Like, you know, but I'm not going to take an embarrassing photo of someone like who's fallen down on the dance floor and is in pain or like, you know, whatever. Like that's just, you know, but that brings me back to the original point here is this sort of like unphotogenic thing. It's like, there's sort of a, I don't know, an artificial level of beauty that we become obsessed with in visual media. And I'm very much a body positivity sort of person. And it just like makes me cringe when anybody says that stuff.
I hate too hearing, one thing I hear a lot of people talk about is whether or not they can put unphotogenic people on their blog or on their Instagram and stuff like that. And it's like, I hate hearing that too. Cause it's like, if you never market with somebody who doesn't live up to your like beauty standards,
right?
What you're saying to like potential clients and customers is, I only want people who look so good or, you know, live up to a certain standard that I have.
Yeah.
And I've heard people make the excuse, but everybody wants to think they're beautiful. So if you're posting beautiful photos, then they will want to hire you because they'll be like, oh, he makes people look beautiful. But I'm just like, yeah, but then if you don't post their photo, that hurts so many people. I've seen so many Facebook and Reddit posts from people who are upset that their photographer, after doing photos of them, did not blog about them or did not put them on their like Instagram or their Facebook or anything. And they're like, they told me they put everybody on and they didn't put me on. And now it makes me think, what's wrong with me? And it's just like, there's a level of sensitivity we need to have as photographers to like what our clients' expectations are going into anything. And like the expectation that, hey, if I say to you, I'm going to use photos of you for marketing, like I don't have to use photos of you for all of my marketing images, but I better have one.
Right. Well, and it's like for me as a wedding, like my wedding photographer hat, like I do like not just wedding photography, but like wedding photography is like the main portion of it. And wedding photography is the main portion of your business. Like just because like for me, candid, natural, emotional moments are my bread and butter. And that's my thing. And that is my marketing niche. It's about like, let's be real. Let's do things like I want to get like this natural. And there's a wedding blog called Pretty Pair Bride. It's also a magazine like that. It's for plus size brides, and like Offbeat Bride does a lot of like plus size, like LGBTQ, like stuff. The people who are not considered like by a traditional standard of beauty. I'm using a lot of air quotes for people who are not, who can't see me, but I'm using a lot of air quotes. It's this traditional standard of beauty or whatever that is out there. And, like, fuck that shit. Like, it's just sort of, I'm going to say it again. I don't usually swear on this, but it's like, fuck it. Fuck that stuff. Like, it's just like, don't make people feel bad about themselves. Like, you can be a wedding photographer and take pictures of all types of people, and it's about love. Like, it doesn't have to be about like people who fit some artificial sense of beauty. Like, and there's just sort of like, I think there's a lot of like overwhelming imagery in our industry of wedding photography of just people who like, it's got to look perfect. They got these perfect looking people and like in these perfect locations, and it just all looks perfect, like that sort of thing. And just that, yeah, stepping down from the soapbox, fuck that shit.
Couldn't agree more. Fuck that shit.
Next, moving on. Next one, next term. This is very specific to photographers. This is tones, baby. Like, oh man, look at those tones. And vibe. Vibe is the other one that goes with that. Tones and vibe. It's like a fucking Instagram bullshit.
I love seeing those though, because like it instantly sets like the tone for everything that you see from them. Where it's just like, if you know that they're talking a lot about like the vibe and everything, there's like a certain type of photographer who's going to be saying like
vibe
and
hey, vibes, bro.
And, like, the tones were so great at this. And it's like, I don't feel like there's anything wrong with it, but it is one of those things where it's just like, oh, you're one of those as soon as I hear it. And
you're like, one of those people.
Cool. Like,
you're one of those photographers. You just like immediately know, like, every time I hear tone, like I'm such an 80s like action movie person. Like I immediately think of Top Gun. I've got tone. Like anytime everybody says like, oh, look at the tones. I'm like, oh, I've got tone. Like, yeah, all right. We're good. Missiles away.
I mean, I shouldn't speak too much about this. My wife and I did have an editing company for a while called Bespoke Tone. So,
hey, you know what? That's fine. It's a word that like instantly grabs you. Like, what you're like, as far as a marketing sense, like that works. I mean, like, I think that, but it's bespoke. Like I just to go on into that, like what you're saying, like in bespoke, that means like to what people order or what they want. It's very customized. Yeah. So it's not just like the sort of generic term that people throw out there when it comes to tones, which generally I find tends to be Sony photographers.
Well, I mean, our next business is going to be called Handcrafted Vibes. So.
Handcrafted Vibes. You know what? Those are some good vibes. Handcrafted vibes are the best vibes. I'm totally feeling those vibes.
I'm vibing.
I'm vibing it, bro.
I'm vibing and keeping it tight.
Tight. Oh, next one. Photoshop as a verb.
Oh gosh. Oh man. It's like how we used to use Google as a verb, and like older people still use Google as a verb, but like my son and his friends who are 10, they don't say I'm going to Google that. They say I'm going to search that up.
What? That's the new hip lingo.
Like the new thing.
The new hip lingo.
Search it up.
Search it up.
Yeah.
Search it up. Nice. Okay, now I know how to communicate to the 10-year-old crowd. Yeah, it's sort of like using Photoshop as a verb. Like people will constantly be like, that's a client side term. Like we talk about code words. Like clients use Photoshop as anything to do with retouching. He's like, can you Photoshop that for me? I mean, Photoshop.
Let's just push it, and we can get clients to start saying, "Let's edit that up, bro."
Yes, we are the ones in control of this. We can bring this back. We can like edit it up, bruh. Just edit that. Edit that. Do you even edit, bruh? Because now there's like there's like 80 different like editing things. Like Adobe may be the sort of the pinnacle of editing photo and image editing software, but there's a lot of other things out there. Do you on one that, bro? Do you Luminar that, bro?
Just Luminar that sky. Come on, bro.
Luminar that sky, bro. I know exactly what you mean. You mean replace it.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, I know.
That's all I think of when I think of Luminar.
Yeah. Sponsor of the podcast, technically, because I got an affiliate. But,
Nice.
like if you've heard the Luminar Pirates ad ever on this podcast, yar, Luminar. Yeah. But when you say Luminar or something, I immediately think replace the sky. Or like, I don't know if you've ever used it. Have you ever used Luminar?
Yeah.
You have? Have you used the portrait aspect of it?
I have not. My co-host at Wedding Photo Hangover does a bunch of like real estate stuff, and so he got me into using Luminar when I thought I was going to also do real estate stuff during COVID times, and that never took off for me. So
yeah, it is like a lot of it is AI based, and it's
for the
like,
portraits.
Oh yeah, well for everything. Like they have a whole like it's now no longer Luminar 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
It's Luminar AI. This is, probably the future at some level for a particular aspect of like segment of photography is AI editing. Because people don't want to spend time, and they don't want to learn. See what I did there? I didn't actually use numbers or letters. But like just like doing the editing for you, but they're like the portrait stuff that it does, like it like change, like Photoshop has this in the liquify feature of like changing people's faces, eyes, things like this. But like the Luminar has it all just like in a slider category. Like when you go into their portrait segment, and it is creepy as fuck. Like it's just how you can change somebody's face in like 5 seconds. And it goes back to like what we were saying at the beginning about unphotogenic, like just like seeing what they do to people's faces with this software, like creeps me out. Like changing
people
people's
have that like built into what they want though, because their Instagram filters that they use for all their messages and everything are completely changing their faces. There was a friend of mine who the other day I was just looking at their Instagram videos, like their stories, and it was like every single one of these, they have like anime eyes. Yeah. It's like their eyes are so big, and it's just I don't get it, but I notice like a lot of people do that. They like sparkle. They think like the giant big eyes look better.
Sparkle like an anime princess.
On. Yeah, it's
Jack
very,
Black
very
said in Jumanji remake. Sparkle like an anime princess. Yeah,
is the Jumanji remake good? I haven't seen that.
Oh,
I watched the original when it came out.
Robin Williams Jumanji is excellent, and Kirsten Dunst is in that. Kirsten Dunst is the young girl in that. Like, there's and the kid, the boy is, oh God, he's another Steven Spielberg kid. I think he's in other stuff, but like, yes, love the original Jumanji. Like, fantastic, amazing. The first, like Jumanji, is great. Like the remake, the second one was I was a little like, meh, you're like maybe double dipping on something you shouldn't have. Like because it's not a remake, it's a continuation. It's totally a continuation of first. At no point is it like we're rebooting this. It's like there's a lot of love for the originals in those in the two additional movies. But like, yeah, Jack Black has a moment where he's like, I want you to sparkle like an anime princess. So it's just like it's become one of my prompts now for like weddings. Is like, yeah, sparkle like an anime princess.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and it gets
them.
Go ahead.
I feel like I should though, because it's Karen Gillan's in it from Doctor Who.
Yes,
Amy Pond.
She's amazing. Also Nebula from MCU, and she's great. She's really great. Jack Black is great because, well, I'm not going to give away like why Jack Black's character is great, but it's like their two characters are especially good because it's all about like types and archetypes that people are playing. Like, and even Kevin Hart, like it's just there's a lot of like video. If you played video games and like just in movies both together, it's just like how things work out. Like, yeah, that's great. All right, we gotta move on. falling behind. Next code, collab. Steve, you want to collab on something? What does that mean to you?
You mean do a bunch of work for you for free?
Yes.
So,
that's exactly what
that's
I mean.
all I think every time I hear collab. We get the DMs on Instagram all the time from companies.
Wicked
Justin and I,
collabs.
that are like, yeah, can we, do you want to collab with us? And then they're like, here, if you want to collab with us, here's a discount coupon to get 30% off one of our $150 things. And I don't know if you're familiar with the website AliExpress.
Yes.
It's like,
you
can buy like stuff from, I think it mostly gets shipped from China, but it's all like stuff that you can buy and then resell for the most part.
Well,
and so like you go onto AliExpress and search it up, what they just sent you, and it'll be like 15 cents on AliExpress, and they're trying to sell it to you for 150. And it's
you
like,
know why
this
it's
is utterly
AliExpress?
ridiculous.
You know why it's AliExpress? Because it's Alibaba Express.
Yes,
The website Alibaba, which is a wholesale website. But yeah, like I get that all the time. And then it's funny you mentioned that. I get that all the time from my dog. For my dog's Instagram.
You have a dog Instagram?
Yes, my dog has her own Instagram. She's extremely photogenic. She's a beautiful dog. And she's gorgeous. So but anytime like I post a photo of her, and it's very funny, I'll get like 5 comments and like DMs. Hey, you want to collab with us? And it's always, we'll give you 30% off our product. And then you use our hashtag or like point them to and you'll get a 10% commission. Like, I'm like, great. Yeah. 10%. Thanks. Like, no, I'm not buying. Like, basically all you're doing is like telling me to buy your thing and then tell other people to buy your thing. And I'm getting 10% back. Like, no, I'm not like, it's not how this is going to work.
I got one recently that was just so good, and I wanted it to be real so bad. It was a pubic hair trimming company called Smooth My Balls.
Smooth My Balls. Oh, I gotta know that. Yes, I've seen those.
It was like a complete ripoff of like the Manscaped pubic area trimming stuff, you know?
Yes.
And they reached out to us because they said they wanted to talk to us about sponsorship or something like that.
Somehow there's crossover in the Wedding Photo Hangover. Wedding Hangover, I think, is probably what the 2 keywords.
They were just like, so come on, let's go ahead and you can buy one of our ball trimmers for 30% off.
30%.
You post about it.
Yeah.
You post about it to your Instagram and talk about it in your podcast, and we will send you a grooming kit for $70. The grooming kit was, I think, $3 on AliExpress.
Yeah.
And
thank you so much. Thank you.
And I was just like, wait. So you want me to pay money to market your product for you? I was like,
right.
We've worked with other brands before, and they've always paid us money and
up
or
front.
Sent us their product.
Send me the product. Yeah, send me the product for free to try it out. Like even like the people who are like of this, people who listen to the Nerdy Photographer, like the people I do ads for, like their affiliates, whatever. They allow me to use their product for free, so that then I choose to promote it on the website. It's not like they're asking me to pay to use the product and then whatever. It's just, like the collab is like such a, oh man, it's such a dirty word. It makes me feel gross even saying it. Hey, you want to collab?
It was so disappointing. So disappointing with Smooth My Balls though, because I was just thinking about I'm going to be spending the next year of my life saying Smooth My Balls every single time I record an episode of the podcast.
You wanted to, though. You kind of wanted to.
Fantastic.
If they would have paid you to do it, like that's the thing. That's like, if you had been getting money up front, you'd been like, "Smooth my balls, motherfucker!" Like, and I've seen
this week. The Wedding Photo Hangover brought to you by Smooth My Balls.
Smooth my balls. So you come up with like so many different ways to say, and we're giving them free advertising right now. We got this on my podcast. Jeez, Steve, what the fuck is going on? I'm giving them like. Why am I not getting paid for this? Smooth my balls.
This is a collab right now.
It's a collab happening. This is a collab happening with Smooth My Balls right now. Oh, which brings us to our next. All right, we're going to get out of collabs. Side hustle.
This is also a side hustle happening right now.
Yeah, this is 2 side hustles collabing right now.
I hate side hustle. I'm coming to the point where I just hate the word hustle, and I don't hate people hustling. Like, that's fine. Like, yeah, you're gonna go out for a jog, hustle. Yeah,
hustle. You're gonna hustle.
You're gonna work on something, hustle. That's fine. But it's like,
don't call it
have
hustle.
this idea that like the word hustle is a toxic word, and it's like, I don't feel like hustling is toxic. I feel like if you always work and you never take time to invest in yourself or anything, that's when it's toxic. And that's not really hustling. That's just being like a workaholic, I would say.
I mean, I also have like a sense of like the word hustle, like as a hustle, like I'm going to hustle you. Like there's a difference between.
But that's cool. That's like, I don't know.
Contronyms. There's contronyms. It's the thing. Yeah. It's like, like hustling, like I'm going to work really hard versus I'm going to hustle you. Like, I'm going to get money from you without putting in as much effort as I should. Like,
I mean,
my side hustle
couples all the time for my wedding photography.
Oh, you can say that. Like,
that's what it is, right? It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
It is. It is work. But like, you are hustling. That's a different thing. Like when I was playing football in high school, like, you better hustle. Like hustle. You got to hustle and get there. You got to hustle and do this thing. Like, do the work. You got to work hard. You got to like do as much as you can, as opposed to I'm gonna hustle you. Is like, this is not worth what you're paying for it, or I am somehow pulling the wool over your eyes. Those are two different things. It's like
no. It's cool. It's just a collab. It's
just a collab.
It's a collab.
It's a collab. Like, and this funny thing, I put this up on Reddit, and normally I don't get very many responses when I ask for like topics for like people to say, in like side hustle like came up so many times. People, and one person, I'm not going to take credit for this because somebody else said this. They're like, "What? Are you trying to rip people off? You're not selling drugs, Roger. You take mediocre wedding photography. That's not a hustle." But it's also like goes back to like you mentioned, we did an episode of your podcast. We were talking about an episode that I did on my podcast with Rob Hall about people like working themselves to death. And, it's sort of, like there's something we touched on in that episode. It was talking about like, the side hustle. Nobody can have a hobby anymore. Like, photography can no longer be a hobby. Yeah. Like, you have to be like making money off of it. It has to be a side hustle. And he talks about like, Rob was talking about like, like everybody's got to have like 8 side hustles instead of like just doing something because you enjoy it. And there's a sort of, like a mindset of like, hey, can we get past like, you have to make money from this? Like, I've been doing a podcast for 2 years now that I don't make any money off of this podcast. Like, I just do it because I enjoy it. Like, it's teaching people or whatever. Like, yes, would I like to make money off of it? Fine. Like, that's great. But like, that is not my like main, like, I don't do this because I feel like I need to make money from it. I mean,
the flip side of that too, though, is if everybody has to have like 8 side hustles, what we're saying is we live in a broken economic system where the people at the top are making a lot of money. The people at the bottom aren't getting paid a fair wage. And as a result, people at the bottom have to have 7 or 8 different side hustles so that they can afford to make enough money to live the kind of life they want to live. And then us photographers, if we want to make money off of them because they're not being paid a fair wage, we have to either charge lower prices or we have to get told by a ton of people that we're too expensive. I mean, if we want to get political,
hashtag late stage capitalism, I think is what we're talking about there. Hashtag late stage capitalism hustle. Yeah, I agree completely, 100%. And that's not just the Scotch talking at this point. Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying. Like, I wish that people could feel free to have a hobby or something that they enjoy without feeling the need to monetize it. You don't need to monetize everything that you do. All right. I'm going to take a breath, shake that out, because I completely agree with that. And maybe that's another episode of the podcast that we can get into some serious discussions about economics. My next code word, photography industry code word, visual storyteller. Stephen, what do you think when you hear the words visual storyteller?
What I want to believe is it's somebody who has a story in mind when they're taking a photo and they're trying to convey that story. But what I know what it really is it's just a bullshit term that gets thrown around by people to try to make themselves sound more important than they actually are.
Instagram profile buzzword is what I think of immediately.
Yes.
I think, I agree. I want it to be like, yes, you're telling a story. A picture is worth 1,000 words. I want to think, yes, this is somebody who is actually being thoughtful and telling a story, but I'm so jaded at this point. Like the things like it's probably just something somebody's thrown into their, I live in a van and drive around the United States, and there are plenty of people who do that who are great at their job, but there's also just sort of like people who play off of that term just to make money. Again, they're side hustling.
Their vibes and tones.
They're side hustling their vibes and tones to be a visual storyteller, which brings us into the next term, purist. Purist. What is that? What taste is that? What bouquet does that leave in your mouth when you hear pure? Just say it. Say it for me one time.
It doesn't leave a good bouquet, purist. Purist. It feels too hateful. Honestly,
it feels judgmental. It feels really judgmental to me. Whenever anybody says I'm a purist, except when, for me, Highlander, the movie Highlander, I'm a Highlander purist. Yeah. There should have been only one movie. That's it. I'm a Highlander purist. And that's maybe I'm a snob because of that, but I am a Highlander purist. But when it comes to photography, what the hell does that term even mean?
I feel like it means I don't use overlays. I don't do sky swaps. I don't do photoshopping or any of that kind of stuff. I feel like is what people are trying to say, but I feel like more often than not, it probably means something like I only shoot with a medium format camera or with a wet plate or something weird like that.
Yes, I only shoot with a wet plate, and it's going to take 20 minutes to a tintype or a daguerreotype. I am such a photographer. Yeah. You listen to the Rob Hall episode where he's like, I wonder if there's a big market for photos captured with a camera obscura.
When you guys said the thing about camera obscura, just doing 1 4-hour shot of a wedding, I was like, I want to do that. I want
to be that guy.
That's a great idea.
Really want to. It was, and it was just like, God damn it! I've got to part of me wants to add that because I've got a pinhole camera lens.
Yeah.
For digital, and I was just like, oh man, I should just set up a pinhole camera on a tripod. Here's one shot of your ceremony, and here's one shot of your reception, and that's it. I'm done. That's me for the day. It's gonna be a bulb. It's one bulb shot. And honestly, it could take 20 minutes or that's it. Nobody would know the difference if I took that photo. Yeah, I'm good. I'm golden. As B. Arthur would say, golden girls. I'm totally golden girls, 100%. Anybody says purist, I think it gets us into a whole other conversation about at one point, with digital manipulation, does it no longer become a photo? That's a whole other conversation for another podcast episode. We could go into hours and hours and hours for no overlays, no editing, whatever. But I tend to think of it when I hear somebody say it, it's generally a gatekeeping term. Mm-hmm. It's somebody trying to put down people who take good photos or create interesting digital artwork or whatever it is, great photos, whatever. But they're like, no, I'm a purist. You can only if you shoot with 35 millimeter film and only with prime lenses. And I'm a purist, that sort of thing.
It's also a great place to find refuge if you're comparing your work to somebody else's and yours isn't as good as theirs. You can be like, oh, well, I'm a purist. So.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I think it's people who feel threatened by other photographers. I'm going to pull back and be like, well, I only use prime lenses and full frame photography, and no one can compete with me on that level. And I don't retouch anything. So therefore, I am a purist. Yes, I've suddenly become the Dukes from Trading Places. Let's move. Sorry. It was the Dukes. It was the Dukes. Next code word. And this totally goes with the last one. Filmic.
Oh, gosh.
It's not a real word.
And I mean, to jump ahead to your next one, cinematic are
Yes.
two words I just hate hearing.
Yeah. It just makes me vomit in my mouth.
Just like, it's just like people who are, in my opinion, when I hear the word cinematic, my background's video production before I became a photographer. And what it typically means is it's somebody who puts their camera onto a gimbal and then runs around a lot. And it's like, that's not cinematic. Like, have you seen, like, I don't know, you mentioned in the, like, when we were talking, referencing 2001: A Space Odyssey, and it's like,
yeah,
how many gimbal shots are in 2001? Like,
none.
It's like, cinematic has nothing to do with having a gimbal, but like, that's the number one thing I hear when I hear that word. And when I hear filmic, I feel like the thing I'm thinking of most is they bought a preset that's supposed to replicate film.
Yes. It looks like
it. That's what makes it filmic.
Hashtag looks like film. Much like hashtag Game of Tones. Hashtag looks like film. I always think of the Chappelle show thing, like Edward Bingham's, whatever. Like, y'all got any more of those film look presets? Like, yeah, it's like filmic. Like, it's what does that even mean? It looks like film. Well, you want film? Like, I got a real quick tip for you. It's like, what looks like film? Film. Like, go shoot film. Like, I still have film cameras, and like, it was one of my, like, actually, talk about high performance engagement, like social media posts. Like, I did a Instagram reel that was like, here's 3 quick tips to like get that film look. It was A, buy a film camera, B, shoot with film, C, develop film. Like, otherwise it's just like you're emulating the look of film. Like, don't use the word filmic. Like, it's just and it's, I feel like it's again like that gatekeeping thing, and it's usually people who are purists who like talk about like older DSLRs that looked more filmic, but those are also the same people who bitched about those same DSLRs looking too digital, like when they came out. Like, it's like 60-year-old photography dudes.
It's a lot of nostalgia, but also I do see people who say they're doing like filmic stuff getting a lot of engagement, it seems like. So I'm wondering, my reels haven't really taken off on Instagram. If I started shooting all of my reels on a film camera and then digitizing it
8mm
for Instagram,
8mm,
would that bump up?
Yeah, I think it would really totally bump up your engagement. It's filmic. Like, just shoot it with 8mm, get it developed, and then transfer it to digital, and then you like make a reel out of it. It's really a reel. It's literally a reel.
It's a real reel.
It's a real reel. For real. And that could be the hashtag that you used. For real. And it's like at the beginning, you just show a video of you like pulling out the 8mm like film after it's come back from developing. It just cost me $100 to shoot this 15-second reel for Instagram to get 20 likes.
Maybe just to fit with my brand a little better, maybe just show me pulling the film straight out of the 8mm camera, just destroy
it. I'm not going to actually shoot this reel. I'm not going to shoot the reel on film. I'm just going to show you me. And that is actually something I've seen. I've actually seen, like, now that I think about it, I've actually seen people like showing like, oh, here I am winding the film on a film camera. Like, okay, you obviously didn't take this picture because I see the film and it is now exposed. You're a moron. Like, there's no film there because you've just exposed it. Like
It's all about the visual storytelling. In movies, you have to cut corners and show people something that they think looks real and portrays the story to them, whether or not it would ever happen or work in real life.
Yeah, most of the time it doesn't. Most of the time, none of the stuff works in real life. So yeah, next one. Next, this is definitely a photographer specific. Photog, protog, tog.
Oh gosh.
I've only started hearing this in the last couple of years. Like honestly, like it was because I was using nerdy photographer creates a lot of memes. I make a lot of memes, but then I was starting to think like there's another guy from New York who runs memes for togs, and I was just like, what is togs actually a word, or was he just like, you know? But then I started like and people are using photog. I'm like, who says? How is it? You're not really shortening it that much. Like you're like photog and photographer are not that much different. Like you're still got two syllables in there. Protog.
I like that. That's the purest one, the protog.
Protog is a total purist. Protog. I'm a protog. This is like
it was too long to say professional photographer, so shortened it to protog.
I'm a protog. Protog. I'm a photographer.
But I mean, having snappy nicknames does kind of open up like photography to doing like more parody type stuff. Like, it's really hard to slide like photographer into a rap song that you're trying to do like a photography parody of.
Oh,
but
yeah.
You could fit tog in real easy.
My Weird Al-ness comes out here at this point. Like one of the first. Was it the first? Yeah, I'm not sure on the chronology of this, but Ozzy Osbourne and Weird Al were my two first personally visited concerts. So like, yeah, parody. I used to have a parody band for about 9 years. So yeah,
Nice.
like yes, like using the word photog, tog, and protog, having different words, like it's great, and also you can rhyme a lot more that way than photographer. But sometimes you need photography. You need those syllables. I also do haikus a lot, and sometimes you need to have different syllable lengths. So I can understand like there's a need for those things, but sometimes.
You got your photographers, you got your tographers, you got your togs, you got your toggers, you got your photoggers,
clickers,
you got
snappers,
all the syllables.
clickers, snappers. So much in there. It sort of reminds me, like in New York City, and this is I don't know if this is, you were talking about your partner on Wedding Photo Hangover doing real estate photography.
Mm-hmm.
This was the thing, and I used to do real estate photography as well in New York, just because it just happened into it, and it was a thing that I would do during the week when I wasn't doing wedding photos. But they just became a thing in New York City real estate about making the most we've got to shorten the name of this neighborhood. So Soho was always Soho. It was south of Houston Street.
Yeah.
So Soho. Or, there was, but then it became like these other things like NoHo, which is not a thing. North of Houston is not a thing. Like they started using it. Or Mima, Midtown Manhattan. It was like Mima became a thing. Or then there was like, what was it? North of Nolita, north of Little Italy. Nolita. It's just,
I love that actually. That's great.
It's great. It is, that one is the only one that I accept, like as a real thing, other than Soho, because Soho was before became a real estate thing. Like Nolita, I like it just because it works. It just works. It shortens such a dramatic amount of words into a very short thing. But like Midtown Manhattan to Mima is just like, what the fuck are you doing? But
Isn't it just Midtown anyway?
Yeah, Midtown. But we had to come up with something else. Mima. No, it's Midtown. It's
Mima's
just
a lot catchier, It rolls off the tongue there. Mima.
Mima. It's like Dr. Evil. We will go to Mima, and then we will get the lasers on our sharks. Mima. But it's in the other boroughs, and this is something that like people who don't live in New York and like you have experienced in the outer boroughs, like Queens and Brooklyn, especially, like it's just become like rampant, like creating these like sort of like LIC, Long Island City was like it's the area like just across the bridge from Manhattan in Queens. And Long Island City was not a thing before, like people just started moving there to like, because they couldn't afford to live in Manhattan. Like then it became like cheaper rent to live in Long Island City, LIC. And then all of a sudden it became just as expensive to live in Long Island City as it did to live in Midtown Manhattan. Because it was like, oh, it only takes 5 minutes to get there on the subway. So now it's just as expensive. So it's just like that protog, like just totally reminds me of real estate selling. Oh, next one. Oh, this is one that as a former physicist, science person, color science.
Yeah, because Sony has terrible color science, right?
Yeah. Well, it's one of those
things
I
hear all the time.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I think it's mostly like I'm a Canon photographer, but I hear it so much from Canon photographers, and it's like it's one of those things that I did like I personally, and it just comes down to a matter of personal preference. Yep. I always liked the colors from Canon more. Like I just liked Canon colors more. Like it's their sort of like natural color state appealed to me more, and like the layout of the controls on their cameras just felt more intuitive to me. People who shoot Nikon, they like their Nikon colors, quote unquote, air quotes. Sony people like the tones. They love the tones that they get from the Sony cameras.
Yeah,
but
they're
it's
vibing to those tones.
They're vibing those tones. They're vibing the color science and color theory that they're getting, that Sony is putting out there. But like
Sony Togs, they love it.
Sony Togs, those pro Togs who shoot Sony, loving that Sony color science. I generally find this term is thrown out by people who have no idea what color science is.
Yeah. It's the science of colors, right?
It's another one of those things that's just sort of a gatekeeping mechanism. Like they just want to use the term to like put down anybody who just picked up a digital camera and wants to take pictures. Like, no, you don't understand the color science, bro. You don't understand the color science. Like, really?
I would like them to get like more specific. Like, is it the color science, or is it like the color physics, or the color biology, or the color chemistry?
Color chemistry.
It's science is a broad term.
It is a very broad term, and as a former scientist, I would love to like challenge these people to talk to me about the color science. Like, one of my friends from college writes fantasy novels. Which are about color science. His name is Brent Weeks, and he writes fantasy novels about people who create magic based on color. It is totally based on, like, we've had conversations about color science. Like, he really delved into the science of colors and how people perceive color with their eyes. And and he will sometimes like message me and be like, "Hey man, like, am I right here?" Like as far as like talking about this, like, we talk about like absorbing, like black, like the color black. Is it absorbing all colors, or is it like, there's reflective light versus absorbed light? We're going to talk about color science. I am totally happy to get into a really deep dive nerd conversation about color science and what it is that happens in a photo sensor in a digital camera versus what happens like photons interacting with a chemical reactant in a film camera versus like what you see, what your human eye perceives, like is the opposite of actually what happens. We're actually seeing a negative image of what it really looks like because it's what bounces off of that thing. Like what comes into your eye is what bounces off of it. Like there's a whole, like we can get philosophical about this. Like there's a lot of conversations we can have. I had a philosophy professor in college who was completely colorblind. And his main thing would be like, his thing would be like, I see color. I see the world in black and white. and so does my dog, convince me what blue is. Tell me what blue is. You have no basis of describing what blue is, because blue is what all of us sort of, we think. Like, I'm going to really philosophical on you for a second here, Stephen. Blue is what we all sort of agree blue is. You may perceive blue completely differently than I perceive blue. We may actually see completely different things, but we have the concept of blue is agreed upon. We all agree that the sky is blue. What you see as blue may be what I see as red, but we've all agreed sky is blue, water is blue, whatever is blue. Like my shirt that I'm wearing right now is blue. My eyes are blue. But like, that's a conceived conceit, like that we all agree on, that this is blue. But who knows? You might see a completely different color than I see. So yeah. Like that's a whole, like, you want to get into color science and theory. There's potential for that, because like, other people will say, like, you know, like that I'm going to dive deep into the science of it. Like, oh, the cones and rods in your eye only accept these wavelengths of light, and we agree on the wavelengths of light. But do we? Yes. We agree that those wavelengths of light, we agree that they look a certain way.
But I mean, at some point we have to know we're all pretty close, because like, just as an example, when I was in high school, I was on nominated for the homecoming court, and I did not get the votes to win. But me and the other two guys in the homecoming court, we all got colored tuxes because we like Dumb and Dumber.
Right.
And when we got the colored tuxes, the place did not have blue and orange like we were hoping for. They had blue and green and yellow. And somehow I pulled the short straw of yellow. Ooh. And unanimously, everybody thought I looked really bad in yellow. So there's some sort of consensus.
Yeah, there's a consensus. Right? Well, we all agree that like there's just an agreement that like that doesn't work. Yellow, whatever people perceive as yellow, just does not look good on anybody.
But especially on me.
No, seriously, anyone. Yellow doesn't look good on any. Well, you know what? Tones. And like there are certain skin tones it actually works, and surprisingly, like, you know, like there's a whole other thing, like what works for, like, this goes back to like where we started off, like what's photogenic, and I feel that people with darker skin tones are sort of discriminated against. Yellow actually works really well with darker skin tones. It just like it actually it's very complimentary. But then we're gonna go like we're sort of like going off things again. Like I tend to ramble. Next one, and this is this again. It's an Instagram fave. SOC, straight out of the camera. Straight out of the camera.
I can't tell you how many times somebody has said straight out of camera, and then like you can clearly see they photoshopped something,
or just adjusted
like
the
straight out of camera, but they've definitely chosen like X Pro 33C, the filter on Instagram. And it's like, it's no longer straight out of camera once you do that. Like,
I mean, like my hip hop purist part of me is like a straight out of camera. Like, it's just like, you know, it doesn't, it's like there's, as soon as you import it into Lightroom and you apply any sort of like color profile to it, it is no longer straight out of camera. Like, how are you getting this straight? The initial question I have is like, unless I see a very dull looking photo that has like very little contrast to it, like, it is not straight out of camera. Like, that is not like those guys, and you know, Rob Paul and I talked about it. And there are people who like take photos. They're very popular in the photography industry, who take a lot of like great photos in optimal conditions, who will show in their behind the scenes a straight out of camera image, but it's quite obvious that they imported it into Lightroom or whatever, and there's been at least some tonal adjustment to it, because it is not like a raw image in a raw digital image tends to be very flat, like extremely flat.
That is because I peruse Facebook groups all the time to get content for my podcast. I see people asking, just literally, there's hundreds of people, it feels like, every day asking. I took a photo with my camera. I imported it into Lightroom. It no longer looks the same as it did on the back of my camera.
Yes.
And it's like the disconnect there. It's like even straight out of camera, like if you were taking JPEGs and throwing the JPEG straight out, like that's not even like straight out of camera. Like the straight out of camera would have to be like the raw.
Well, you'd have to go in and determine so what weird. The camera setting, because like cameras have like those like, you know, like what photo, what profile are you using when you're shooting? Because it's like, are you using their portrait profile, which is like ups certain things and like saturation or contrast, landscape or whatever. Because every camera has like these built-in sort of profiles to them that like you are not getting unless you are shooting in a totally neutral profile that you've created probably for yourself that has no anything that like it is not straight out of the camera. There is like, you know, like some sort of processing has occurred. And like you're specifically like when you go into Lightroom, going into like and making sure that like default settings and you're not applying any sort of color profile or LUTs, no LUTs going on, no presets, no nothing getting, you know, no processing of any kind. And I doubt that that's what's happening when anybody like shows me a straight out of camera SOOC hashtag SOOC like photo. I doubt that that is what's happening anytime anybody, because most of the time it feels like it's sort of, again, a sort of gatekeeping sort of thing. Like, this is what I take coming straight out of the camera, bro. This is what I got.
I don't even have to edit this.
I don't even have to edit this photo. Like sometimes you get that, like that shot, like there have been a couple of wedding photos that I've taken and I'm like, oh, damn. Like, I don't need to do anything to that. Like, I don't need to do nothing. But then I add my presets to it anyway, and you know that I've developed over time. Like, so it looks consistent with my other photos, but I don't do any other sort of editing to it. Like that's sort of like, I think it's sort of trying to think of an analogy here where it's like, you know, I can't think of anything that's analogous to like you've already done like 5 steps, but then it's like, I don't do anything to this and do nothing to it. Like, but there's sort of like 5 automatic steps that already occurred.
Especially like if you're using one of the like Fuji cameras, where you can put like a profile on it that'll make it look like one of the like the old Fuji films, like the
there's just sort of film look. Yes, like those. Like I had a friend and second shooter for weddings who had like he was just showing me. He was like, you know, I don't do this when we shoot, because he used his like Fuji as like his second camera. Like when he was shooting for me, he's like, I don't use any of those presets, but he's like, I just wanted to show you. And I'm looking at him like, it's like, this is like in the raw image. Like it goes into the raw like image and it's just there. It's in the XMP sort of data that you create. And it's just like, dude, this is not any sort of like negative image. And we're gonna
I gotta say, as a photographer, it would be great though if I could load my preset from Lightroom straight into my camera, so I have less to do when it comes time.
It's so awesome
to edit.
All right, we're on to our last one. Okay, and this is very. I feel like this is very wedding specific. Obsessed / swooning. Swoon. I swoon.
Oh gosh. I hate every time I see somebody post something to Instagram and the only word they write underneath it is swoon. What does that mean? What is it about this that you liked? Like, it's so basic. It's so basic.
Yeah, it's so basic. It's just like, I just want to use this word because I don't know what else to say here, but I swoon. I swoon. I really like this photo. I swoon. It's just, go ahead.
To be fair to people who say swoon, I do also see people who post photos and they're just like, vibe.
Yes, because it's a vibe. I totally vibe this. The vibes from this photo. I was like, well, what do those vibes mean? What sort of vibes? Are they positive vibes? Are they negative vibes? are you getting? What sort of vibes are you getting off of this? All right. I think that's a good place to wrap up.
Yeah.
For a photography podcast that teaches you next to nothing about photography?
Do you love stories about real life things that happen to photographers?
Like maybe that embarrassing thing that happened at a shoot you were doing.
Yeah, or like a horrifying thing that happened at a wedding you shot.
We know it's happened to everybody. Maybe you've had a nightmare client that you want everybody in the world to know about.
Something silly that happened behind the scenes.
Well, you have to check out our new photography comedy podcast called Filters Removed.
Yeah, I'm Melissa Johnstone.
I'm Dwayne Larson.
And we tell anonymous true tales of photographer bloopers and misadventures.
New episodes come out every Friday, so you should probably come hang out with us.
And you're going to learn nothing, and you're going to feel like you're just talking shop with your photo buddies.
You can find Filters Removed wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how we handle the situation.
Did you have a contract?
Well, I had one I found for free online, but my lawyer says it might not hold up.
Next time you should head over to nerdyphotographer.com. They've got a selection of contract templates for weddings, events, portrait sessions, and even for hiring second photographers and associate photographers, which would certainly have helped you in your current situation.
Really? I will check that out. nerdyphotographer.com?
Yep, nerdyphotographer.com. They've got all sorts of contracts and agreements that can help make sure to protect you and your clients. So what are you going to do?
Well, we just have to wait and see what happens, I guess.
So, no pants on?
Who know anything below the waist? Totally Porky Pig in it.
Impressive.
Not really. It was pretty cold out.
Ew.
Yep.
Hey. And now for my favorite part of the show. What's that say? Useless information. This is always death.
Were you looking forward to this, the useless information? Because you've listened to the podcast. I mean, it's one of those things that
I love the useless information. One of the ones you shared about the driest place on earth where a body will like dehydrate
desiccate
in an hour after.
Yeah,
wow,
totally
it's just
desiccates.
so crazy. Yeah.
This is a shark attack one. If you see a shark, shout. Letting people know is a good idea.
What?
Shout. Yell. Like, make noise.
Underwater?
No. But you're letting people know, but the better off you are if the situation worsens, because if you get bitten by a shark, people will know. That's completely useless. Because there's so many other things like, punching a shark in the face. Like that actually works. You punch a shark.
Go for the eyes.
No, not the eye. Not the
not the eye?
Punch them in the nose. Punch them right in the nose because it stuns them. It actually stuns, like just not even punching them, touching them. Like I watched a documentary on like sharks, and they're like this whole thing is like bop them on the nose. It like that works. Like people will often like if they're being attacked by a shark, will like hit them right in the face and like find like the shark like no longer was interested, like let go or like moved away because I hit it right on the nose. If you hit them on the nose, they're like there's a lot of electrochemical sensation going on in the nose of a shark. That's how they like smell blood from miles away. That's how the electromagnetic fields they can sense. But if you hit a shark on the nose, it disorients them. And they've even shown where they'll like hang a piece of meat out of the water and the shark will come up to get it. And the guy will just like reach out and like touch the nose of the shark. And the shark will just be like open mouth, just fall over into the water.
Oh, that's great.
It disorients them so much. But like the shouting is more to like draw attention.
Yeah.
Draw attention to yourself in case you get bit. So that people know, hey, that guy got bit by a shark. And also to like warn people.
False alarm is a whale shark. I'm good.
False alarm. I'm just going to get down here and take some pictures with it and like rob it. Totally. It's only interested in krill, you guys. It's not interested in biting me. So
yeah. I watch Ocean Ramsey and Juan Sharks on Instagram. They're like two of my favorite accounts, and they're like they're married, and they go like diving with great white sharks, no cages, like just crazy stuff. And one of the things they said was if a shark is coming at you aggressively when you're diving, like not like a shark attack, that'd be coming real hard at you.
Yeah,
like,
real hard.
If it's coming at you aggressively, you just take your hand out, put it on their nose, and then redirect them.
Yeah.
And just kind of like push them away from you. And they said like it's the best way to take the situation down a notch.
It de-escalates the situation. It's it disorients the shark. And it's like with my dog training. One of the things that we use is like an electric collar, and like you don't have to shock the dog. It's like there's a vibration collar, and it just totally makes them like snaps them out of that moment. And it does the same thing with a shark. Touching their nose like just like totally messes up. Like it snaps them out of whatever they were in. They're like, I'm going to come eat you. And they just like, this is a million years of, genetics. And, they're like, nope, that's food. And like, you just touching their nose and just like makes them and like just disorients them enough. They're like, oh, hey, all right. I don't want to eat that. It's such a, I personally would not.
Here and here is there's a definite reason. There's a definite reason why sharks were called sea dogs when they first were discovered.
Yeah, pet them. Like they just like, and they just like didn't like before we got into this sort of like Jaws mentality of like sharks are so dangerous. Like you pet them, whatever, they just be like, and they totally relax and just like whatever. Okay, you can rub my belly. You like this totally like they were totally sea dogs. Seals, same thing. But yeah, like I could never like I don't know. I've watched Jaws too many times to go free diving with sharks. Like there's sharks in the water. Our shark. Cage goes in the water. You go in the cage. Sharks in the water. That whole, I'm getting my, what's his name? Robert Shaw. Yes. I was thinking Oliver Reed, who was considered for the role of Quint, but it's Robert Shaw. Yeah. It's just, too many times I've seen him get devoured by that shark where to go into shark infested waters without a cage.
Why would Bruce do that? Wow.
No idea. Stephen, thank you for being on the podcast. Like tell people where they can find the Wedding Photo Hangover podcast if they're interested in checking it out, because they should.
You can find the Wedding the Wedding Photo Hangover podcast on Instagram and Facebook at Wedding Photo Hangover. On Twitter, it's WedPic Hangover because
it wasn't
that many letters on Twitter.
Too much.
Yeah, too many letters. And if you want to find me, I'm Stephen Van Elk everywhere.
And do we want to tell people where Dustin is? Okay.
My co-host Dustin, you can find him at Dustin_McKibben.
He's at not the attractive, funny host of Wedding Photo Hangover. We're gonna.
Wow.
Well, I'm just gonna put it out there because like he wasn't available for this recording.
Yeah, he did skip today. So
he skipped.
He had to go to Florida to do anniversary photos for a past client. Ugh.
Getting paid. Gosh.
Yeah, it's the worst.
He couldn't be here for this.
You know, I am a better photographer than Dustin when I'm shooting pure Indiana here in Indiana. When I'm not getting flown out to Florida and stuff.
Pure Indiana.
I do pure photography here in Indiana.
I'm going to say, as a Michigander, you can't say pure without saying pure Michigan.
No, you can't. That's Michigan's thing.
That's our what's his? Oh God, I can't really. I'm blanking on his name. Buzz Lightyear. Oh, Tim Allen. Yeah. He's been doing the
every time I drive into Michigan to see family and stuff, because my extended family all lives in Michigan still. We my wife and I always roll the windows down of the car so we can breathe in that pure Michigan.
Pure Michigan.
It's great.
When my wife and I drive from New York and then now from New Jersey, since we've been living in New Jersey, we hit the border from Ohio into Michigan, and like that I'm like, that's pure Michigan.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Don't even go into Indiana. Shame.
I used to go into Indiana when I was younger in my college days, but you know what? Indiana, Illinois, Ohio, they're beneath me. As a Michigander.
That's great geography.
That's, as the, the UPers, the Upper Peninsula folks always say about, the people who live in the mitten, we're trolls because we live under the bridge.
I love it.
Thank you, Stephen. I really appreciate you being on the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Stephen Van Elk. You can find Stephen on Instagram and Twitter at Stephen Van Elk, or you can find the Wedding Photo Hangover podcast on Instagram at Wedding Photo Hangover and on Twitter at WedPic Hangover. You can find all of those links in the episode notes as well. How's that decryption coming along, Fib? Did those glyphs I found help you?
Oddly enough, yes. It would appear even ancient aliens capable of trans-dimensional travel wrote down their passwords on their workstations. I should have the security code shortly.
Excellent. I hope that you out there listening are enjoying this rich world-building experience. If you are, be sure to let us know on Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok at The Nerdy Photo. You can even leave questions to be answered on future episodes, or you can post them in our Facebook or Reddit groups. And you can find those links in the episode notes as well.
The security code is coming up now.
All right. What's this say? Be sure to drink your Ovaltine? Seriously? That can't be right. Wait, all the equipment's powering up. I guess that was some sort of security phrase or something like that, but who would...
Well, this is unprecedented. It appears that the nerdy photographer has been sent to another dimension. I'm just not sure where. I wonder if these aliens left an instruction manual around somewhere. Oh, I should do the sign-off first. Until next time, stay safe and stay nerdy.
Who's that coming back to town? You better start listening. Who's your heart been beating about? You better listen.
Hey there, do you like movies, cartoons, video games, anime, and everything in between? Then we have a show for you. The For Nerds by Nerds podcast. Every week, Josh and Ben bring you all the latest and greatest in movie reviews, news, commentaries, interviews, special guests, and tons of bonus episodes. New episodes come out every Monday. We also make great nerdy content on our YouTube channel. You can find our show anywhere podcasts are found. The For Nerds by Nerds podcast. Your one stop for all your nerdy needs. Stay nerdy, my friends.